Now that I've made the shoes, I want to tell them where to go. So I'm on the branded distribution tab. You can see coming out of the North America plan, I have this many shoes, and I have them allocated to go to these locations. You notice the red box. Usually when you see a red box, that means dummy. Hey, dummy, you've got 5 more pairs that need to be shipped. So I can make that 305, and it goes away. This is a big deal where you apportion your shoes to, because you need to know where the tariffs are low and where they're not. You can see down here, this is going to give you information on what's going on with the tariffs. It's also going to influence perhaps your upgrade plans and the like. Notice too that it's also flagging to me, hey, in these regions, you forecast that you were going to have a 5-star shoe, but you've actually only got a 4-star shoe. And so that's because over here in the branded production tab, I didn't do anything to make this number go up to 5. And so it's just getting a little bit harder to raise it because it's in my Asia Pacific plant and quality isn't as good. There it is, it's a 5-star plant. And notice when I come back to here, it goes, oh, okay, we're good. On to the internet marketing. Very straightforward tab. All you should be doing here is matching what you put in the sales forecast. Remember the guidance of the 40% rule. Your prices sold online need to be 40% higher than your wholesale prices in that region, or retailers start to go, whoops, not interested in selling your shoes. You're trying to compete with me with online shoes, and I don't like that. So pretty straightforward tab, but something to keep in mind as far as driving conflicts with the retailers. Wholesale marketing, again, these decisions should update based on what you did on the branded sales forecast. You just want to verify them. Pretty straightforward tab here. And just to be clear, this is what you're actually doing. This is what the computer is going to use. The sales forecast tab is what you told it to do the forecast with. To the extent that these two don't match, that's where you're going to have a problem. Celebrity endorsements, you can see that there are 3 celebrity endorsements available this year. One, Peyton will sign for a 2-year contract, Oprah for 3, and Cristiano for 5. This can get a little bit confusing about how much to offer your priority ranking and your total cap. Celebrities can be a big deal when you pay the right price for them. So make sure that you understand how to get into the help screens on this. And let me just show you again about the help screens. It actually pops up over my other screen, so I have to bring it in. But if I have a question about celebrity endorsements, I want to go to the help screen, because in these 3 pages, it's going to give me a lot of good information. Therefore, particularly early on in the simulation, I think you should be clicking up here for help quite a bit. Let's go on to private label. Remember, private label are shoes that don't carry your brand name. And so in the first in the practice round, I'd like you to bid on them. Incidentally, I've been very astutely not clicking on Save Decisions because I've got one of your all's tabs, or I'm using one of your accounts. I would recommend you go through and you save the decisions periodically. So you can see that right now, to be competitive in the private label production, I've got to have a 4-star rating. Well, I'm sitting here with a 3-star rating, so if I make any bids, they're going to be rejected. So I'm going to bid, I'm going to try to bring this up to 4 stars. That's good. Again, it only pays to be just barely 4 stars. Still just barely 4 stars. Hey. There we go. I just needed to raise it 1. So here I'm going to raise it 1 and see if that'll do it. Not quite, because it's the Asia Pacific plant. Quality isn't quite as good. Let's spend a little bit more money in features. Okay, there we go. So now I can bid in the markets, and it says that the bid has to be at least $5 below the regional average price in year 11. And so it's going to tell me would have to go back and see what that regional average price was. And then I put my bid in there. So let's say I'm going to bid 32.48 or 47. Why such a weird bid price? Because if somebody bids 32.45, they get everything. So if somebody would have come in and they'd have bid 32.49 and I bid 32.47, even though I'm only 2 pennies less up to the full amount of shoes that I bid, I will get that bid. So it's good to kind of bid odd prices here, because if you bid 35 and somebody else bids 35, then it goes into a series of tiebreakers. And why would I do that? If I just pull a couple of pennies out, I've got a better deal. So I can make the bids in the different markets. Again, I ship the shoes based on how many I offer in each market. Here, you can see I'm producing these at regular time because I'm not maxing out my plants in the regular production. Not a great deal. Overtime is very easy. The good thing about building private label overtime is if I don't win the bids, well, then my factories aren't sitting idle. I just cancel the overtime. Down here is assume the bid is accepted. You can see what's going to happen if I start unchecking these boxes. Whammo. My profitability goes way down. So if you remember, there is a benefit to having forecasting accuracy called the Bullseye Award. So I tend to want to get these accurate, but I have to tell you, this is always a crapshoot, because what determines who gets the private label bids, the three most important factors, assuming you've met the minimums, are price, price, and price. It's all about who bids the lowest. So it's very volatile here, but go ahead and enter in some bids, and let's see what happens with that for the practice round. And then lastly, to finance and cash flow. This is where I can take out additional loans. This is where I can repay additional loans. This is my dividend. This is a very important point. Last year, the dividend was $1 a share. The thing initializes at 0. I think that's a bad thing. I think it should initialize at $1. What do shareholders hate? Declining dividends. It basically says we're in a cash shortage. We can no longer afford to pay this dividend. So if you lower your dividend from $1, it's going to hit your stock price in that round. And remember, stock price is a big deal in the scoring. But you got to do what you got to do. Investors like stable and increasing dividends. So even if you're raising them from, say, $1 to $2, be careful when you raise it that you can continue to hold that, because going back and having to cut a dividend later is not a good deal. Also, if you have additional cash, you can begin to repurchase your shares, and it'll tell you the maximum number of shares you can repurchase in any given year. This will, for the accountant in your team, it'll give you a sense of where the cash flow is going. You don't want to run out of cash. If you run out of cash during the middle of the year, you'll get issued an emergency loan, but it'll come in at a high rate. If you need to raise more funds through equity, this is how you can do it. But of course, given that this game is about stock price and EPS and ROE, that has some pretty dire consequences. So now that I've made all my decisions, now I would tend to look down on this box and go, am I happy with that? I'm not very happy with that. See, I'm well under the investor expectation. And given that this is round 11 and I don't know what the industry is going to do, something's not right here. And so this is where I would tend to cycle back going, okay, what have I got going on here? So this can become a very iterative loop of going back and changing when I get through everything, then checking my results. But to wrap up tonight's discussion, don't get too excited about the practice round. And this is the analogy I like to use. We know who plays in the Super Bowl. This year, my beloved Denver Broncos beat the Carolina Panthers. Yay for me. Does anybody remember what Denver or Carolina's record was in the preseason? They don't, because it doesn't matter. So the practice rounds are like preseason. Nobody really cares. So if you want to spend a lot of time in the practice round, that's great. And to the extent that you're learning valuable things, that truly is great. but I wouldn't spend a lot of time trying to win the practice round. So for practice round one, make sure that you get it done by the deadline. After the deadline passes, I'm going to go online and make a couple of more, or actually 3 more videos where I go through the products. Going through the products so that I can make decisions for the next round is incredibly important. And it's actually why I have you do the simulation, because it's that take that feedback, see what's going on, make adjustments, and do it again. And this idea of who can learn. I can guarantee you at the end of the simulation, the team that wins will not have been lucky. They will have been good. Now, they may have gotten some luck along the way, but they ultimately won because they were good. And a good chunk of quote unquote being good is that people made good interpretations of the data in the midst of the simulation, and they did a good job of reacting to that. If you don't think of this as a game, if you think of this as real life, you're going to be much better off. The simulation is very high fidelity. About the only thing I can say about the simulation is unrealistic is that to the extent that you get the competitors correct, the branded sales forecast is pretty accurate. Not perfectly accurate, but pretty accurate. And that's not realistic in the real world. Probably nobody has a estimator of demand as good as what you're going to see in the simulation. So the only problem with this game, realism-wise, is it's a little bit easy on the critical question of forecasting your demand. Also, take note there is a practice round 2 built into the system. You can take advantage of that. Also, look at the data reset dates as we lead into round 1 of the simulation. Also, note that everybody, and I emphasize everybody, has to take quiz 1 around the same time that you're turning in your practice round. I'm sorry, that the real round 1 is processing. And the purpose of quiz 1, I give you plenty of time. It should be a high grade for you. I do that simply to force you to get into the books and get to know the simulation better. Give me a shout if you have problems. You're going to love BSG.